Hi, I'm Reynolds with Allie's Organics, and we're going to show you some tips on growing tomatoes today. Probably one of the first things that I want you to know is the difference between determinate tomatoes and indeterminate tomatoes. Now, a determinate tomato is usually a smaller bush-like, but not necessarily, but it will put its tomatoes on all at once, and then you'll just sporadically get a few tomatoes. Sometimes it'll have a second crop, but if they do, they're usually inferior, not as big as your first crop. An indeterminate variety is a variety that puts on tomatoes the whole entire growing season. They're usually larger, they need to be staked. You'll get just as many probably out of a determinate if they're producing well, but the determinates, they just have big bunches all at once, so it's nice for canning, where the indeterminates gives you the tomatoes throughout the growing season. Now, the first thing that I like to do starting a tomato plant off is to give it some food right at first. And so what I do is drench it about an hour before I plant it in the ground with kelp meal tea. Soak it in good about 1 hour before I'm planting in the garden. For our tomatoes, we want to have really good soil, compost worked into it. I always put in 4 to 6 inches of compost every year when I'm putting in a new bed. I do my own mix. I do bone meal, I do a neem seed meal, and I do a green sand. That gives me my nitrogen, my phosphorus, and my potassium. And I just mix equal parts, and I just make a mixture for fertilizer. I'm going to dig a trench. I'm going to sprinkle a couple of tablespoons in this trench of the mixture that we just made. Mix it in with the soil. And I'm going to take the plant that we soaked with kelp meal tea about an hour ago, and I want to lay him on his side. I'm going to make a little bit of a pillow for his neck right here. I want to make sure that root system is covered. He's going to go straight up and give him by the end of the day, and you'll see him growing straight up as nature intended him to. It's just a good way to get more root system for that tomato. I will water it in. Well, and I can use a tomato cage, but this one is an indeterminate variety, so it's going to get bigger. So I can even go to stakes. I can use a large stake here. I want to stake that in, make sure it's in there good and sturdy. You could actually use one on each side to give it more strength. This is a Velcro strap, and that's just a good way to wrap around there, really easy to secure it. You can also use vinyl to help it. And some other things that you can do is use a drip tape. That way your water goes directly to the root system and it doesn't get the leaves. A lot of times you'll have bacteria in the soil, and when it bounces back up, it'll cause blight problems. So we want to not do that very often. We definitely want to have a drip line here instead. Now, some other things that we need to do is fertilize this little guy. Especially if you're in a hot climate, it uses fertilizer up a lot faster. What I like to do when these guys are bigger, and I'll actually fertilize every 3 weeks, I'll create a circle or a band around this guy, and I'll take that fertilizer that we made, and I'll just sprinkle a little bit around there, cover it back up. This will feed it for another 3 weeks, and then you can do it again up until it starts to get cold, and then you won't need to do it anymore. We want to have 6 to 8 hours of sunlight a day minimum. If you live in a really, really hot area, then determinate varieties produce so much better than indeterminate varieties do, especially if you're hitting temperatures of 105. Your tomato blossoms will drop at 88 degrees if it stays there for any length of time. Some things that you can do if you live in the heat, though, is you can use a shade cloth to help. You can plant these where they get afternoon shade. Once it starts to get cold and your plant gets really tall and you don't have much fruit up top and you do down at the bottom, you can actually take the top of that bush out. It'll send all that energy into the fruit down below to ripen it before they actually get hit by the frost. So there's some tips on growing tomatoes.